We have a target guest who's 32 years old, who's single, who's affluent, and they are the ones who set the brand tone for us. They are the attractor to probably the core buyer who might be slightly older. And so she'd probably spend more money or maybe come more frequently. But what drives or motivates her is still looking like the 32-year-old.
You want to find that person that influences. So that where those people live is generally in a cool, hip, urban neighborhood. And for us, the influencers are athletic trendsetters. So that's yogis, that's personal trainers, that's triathletes, runners, etc.
Your real estate strategy has to play into that as well. If I go to the suburbs first, I'm hitting the core customer, but not my target customer. And so I'm not building the brand loyalty. So first we have to go into urban affluent, which is usually where our target guest is. Then urban, which is a mix of the core and the target guest. And then when we go to the suburban affluent, you get the full range. And so how you build your real estate model is also critical to building your brand model. The other thing that's been really critical is the showroom strategy, where we go in ideally a year to 18 months ahead of when we'd like to place stores and start to build brand awareness through the showroom, which is open 3 days a week for sales, and the rest of the time is spent doing community activities, finding those ambassadors, finding those studios, building those critical relationships, and starting to drive pent-up demand in the marketplace. So the store starts out at a higher sales level and the ramp is more effective. So from a business person's perspective, you have a higher use and return immediately on the capital.
You guys put your cotton in the pant wall?
Yes, we do, and it's more just in terms of fit.
At the store level, the person who sets your corporate culture is the store manager. And so elevating that position and having them engage directly in the strategies of the company and being the big focal point of communication was really critical. Way too often what's happened in retail organizations is too many spans and layers and responsibilities get taken out of the store. And a lot of cost is put in the infrastructure between the store and the corporate office. And then you have a lot of people interpreting what the strategic plan is, and you don't have that direct line of communication to the stores anymore. Also, what happens on a pay perspective is the store manager gets a 4% increase and aren't really rewarded for the work that they're doing, and all the decisions are taken out. As we looked at that, what we're really committed to at Lululemon is really empowering and creating the store manager as the key position in the organization, including from a pay perspective, and then being very clear, even though the brand aspects, certain of it might be centralized, that the manager does have decision rights, and so we really call that program the Entrepreneurial Store Manager.
So it looks like we're 50% to plan, which is awesome.
We restructured our compensation plan to allow them to make decisions and take risks, but also have accountability in that. And that, to me, is really how you bring it all together. So you can give decision rights, but if they don't actually have investment in the outcome, then you don't necessarily typically get the outcome that is desired.
80% of my salary is a base pay, and then the rest is based on commission. And it's managing my budget, so that's managing my hours, managing my costs, and then it's also how much we exceed our plans.
Boston store manager Vanitha Goswami studied pre-med at Middlebury College before joining Lululemon as an educator.
Okay, cool. And then you have this.
Regional manager Cara Cameron has her master's degree in political science.
If you asked me 5 years ago what I would be doing, I would say I'd be working for the United Nations. And believe me, this company just started giving me more and more and more and more. And I just ran with it.
Black and white just came into all of our stores over the weekend. And as you can see here, it's Tuesday and we're already sold through on pretty much full size runs.
I love that I'm empowered to make decisions that will impact the company as a whole. And I don't necessarily feel that another company would allow someone maybe at this stage in the game that amount of autonomy, which is really, really cool.
So what is the story that we're telling here? It's tennis and golf.
I work with the store managers one-on-one, just spending time with them and asking why probably 50 times a day, because I can't tell them how they're going to do it. That's what I want them to be able to figure out. This is, here's our problem, so how are they going to solve it? Those are kind of how we're teaching our managers to be business owners.
The local manager has really carte blanche on how they want to set up their store. Now, we've done this over 100 times, and we know what works. So behind the scenes, the training that's involved is very systematic in terms of the reason why we work with local ambassadors is because they impact the entire community. They help influence the clothes that we make. They're the local celebrities. Now, how you get to those guys, we've got a bunch of best practices, but if you've got a method that's better than what we've come up with, by all means, do that.
In most places, you teach people rules, you teach them to follow direction, you teach them to place the green jacket here and the blue jacket here and the yellow jacket here. And I feel like we are so committed to not being that, to having consistency, but total local option in terms of what is needed in that community. And we truly trust that those leaders can figure it out and they know the answers.
Why we're all different is that we're managing our own dollar. Basically, I'm trusted to know my business the best. I think that really speaks to Christine's goal of every store being an individual store. I love the feeling of being able to walk into any Boston store, New York store, wherever I go, and knowing that you could feel the people and the people who make it.
We don't want to create a bunch of robots. We don't want to create a chain store. We never want to be that. You just don't want to be this small Vancouver company that tries to shove a little Canadiana into Santa Monica or El Segundo or Soho. You hire local people and you become Soho.
So how do we take the best of being that entrepreneur and that store manager and risking a little bit of what we think the brand is, allowing them to create some of what the brand is so that we're always at that front edge. And that means it gets messy sometimes. That means people make mistakes. That means sometimes in our store windows, which we let the stores completely do, we end up with something that comes across my desk that I go, oh my gosh. And then you realize you have some little cleanup to do.
And what happens, so if we decentralize our marketing, so to speak, you're going to get some bad stuff. And it's just reality. And you have to be willing to accept that your brand is going to be misrepresented by the people that you've hired and trained potentially 20% of the time.
If they did make a mistake, the biggest thing is having them take accountability and responsibility for it, and then figuring out what they needed to do differently, not writing a rule so it never happens again.
Store window displays range from the quirky to the inspirational to the at times controversial. In fact, Day says, occasionally a store window can create quite a storm.
And so you have to be tolerant of that kind of criticism if you really are committed to executing the model that we are.
Part of being at Lululemon and working for this company is being open to feedback. And I think that's so critical, and just being open to allowing yourself to make mistakes. And in those mistakes, that's when you learn those really, really critical lessons and kind of skills, I would say, to take you to the next level.
The store managers own it, and they own the feedback that comes with it, and they get it real time. And it's not corporate told me to do this. They're not removed from the process, and they actually learn to be responsible for their voice and their judgment, which is at the end of the day really what you want to be able to teach.